Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Belgium once again, and we're going to continue on with this little Trappist mini-series that I've been doing for you. So this is going to be review number 4 of 7, and this brewery is quite interesting because historically they brewed for quite a long period of time. Then there was a sizable pause, and then just before the turn of the millennium the monks actually decided they wanted to start brewing again. So it should be a really quite interesting beer, this one. So for this one we're going to go to Brouwerij de Achelse Kluis, or we're just going to call it Trappist Achel for sake of ease, and we're going to have a little look at their Bier Bruin 8. So for this one, or Bier Bruin Wheat, I guess maybe you would say, but for this one it should be really quite interesting. As the name suggests, it's a brown beer at 8%. It should probably be something similar to a double, I would think, going by the name and by what I know about Belgian beer, but this one it should be really interesting. This is my very first taste of any of the Achel beers, and these guys I think are one of the smaller Trappist breweries. I think it's only West Vleteren actually out of the historic ones that brew less than these guys, so it is really interesting to be able to try this beer as part of the series for you, and I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery, and I'll also tell you a little bit about the Abbey, of course, since it's a Trappist brewery as well. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Trappist Achel. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers. Of course, there's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there of course for all the Belgian beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's constantly being added to, and please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys, and the support that you give the channel is hugely appreciated. But anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brouwerij de Trappist de Achelse Kluis, then we'll just, as I say, we'll just call it Trappist Achel from now on. But the Trappist Abbey of Achel is in the town of Achel in the Campaign region of Limburg province in Flanders in Belgium. It's actually in the very southeastern part of the country, and it is barely just inside Belgium. The nearest recognisable city to it, of course, though, is Eindhoven to the north, and then you've got Maastricht, which is kind of to the southeast as well. Those are probably the two most recognisable cities around this little town. But at the end of the 80 Years' War, the Treaty of Münster was signed between Spain and the Netherlands, and one of the clauses of this treaty was basically that Catholic Mass was not permitted in the Dutch Republic anymore. So the Catholics from Valkenswaard and Schalft actually built a chapel in the small town of Achel, which at the time was part of the Bishopdom of Liège. Like I said, it was barely inside Belgium actually, but the roots of the abbey trace back to 1686 when Petrus van Eynatten founded a community of hermits of St. Joseph, and the community grew until 1789 when the French Revolutionary Army invaded the Austrian Netherlands, and the abbey was then sold to Jan Diedrich van Tuyl, and from there I think the abbey was just gone at that point in time. But in March of 1846, monks from the Westmalle Abbey founded a priory in Achel as a continuation of one that they'd founded in Meerseldrief back in 1838. So the abbey and its 95 hectares of land had been bought by the priest Gast from Heidse in 1845, and the first beer was produced on this site in the year 1852. So the priory was granted the status of abbey in 1871, and the beer brewing became a regular activity, and they were also known for their cattle breeding at that time as well, and various other agricultural things. But over the coming years, several daughter houses were also founded, which included the Rochefort Abbey, which is of course another one of the Trappist brewery abbeys. So at the beginning of the First World War in 1914, the monks left the abbey, and then in 1917 the Germans dismantled the brewery to salvage the copper. There was something like 700 kilograms of copper that the Germans took away to use for the war effort. But after the Second World War, a new abbey was constructed between 1946 and 52, but only 2 of the planned 4 wings were actually completed, and in 1989 the abbey sold most of its land to the National Forest Administration and the Flemish government. But in 1998 the Trappists from Westmalle and Rochefort actually assisted the Achel Abbey to return to brewing, and the beers were first released in 2001. And today they actually do quite a few different beers. So you have the Blanc 5 degrees, the Brown 5 degrees, the Blonde 8 degrees, the Bruin 8 degrees as well, which is this one here, and then you also have the Extra Blonde 9.5 and the Extra Brewing 9.5 as well. So it's almost kind of like they've got a blonde ale, a brown ale, then a double and a triple, and then they've got a stronger triple and a quadruple as well. I guess it's something along the lines, these guys have a completely different sort of style system or notification system than some of the other ones. Of course, the Rochefort brewery do actually use the 6, the 8 and the 10 as well, and it's kind of like double, triple and quadruple. But these guys are supposed to do some really quite nice beers, and it is cool to see that one of these historic abbeys, even though they had all the problems with the wars and things like that, and after such a big pause, they did actually go back to their roots and start brewing again. So as I say, this one should be a really interesting beer to try. But as I said, all the links to the brewery website and stuff like that and the abbey are in the description below, so if you want to learn a little bit more about them, do make sure you check it out. But as I say, hopefully sometime I can actually go to Belgium and the Netherlands again and just do a wee tour around all of these Trappist abbeys, because they seem to be all fairly reasonably close together, within a couple of hours drive of each other. But yeah, should be a really nice one this. So there you can see the nice artwork on this one, quite distinctive of course, the Trappist Achel one. It's a kind of skin colour if you like. And you can see plain bottle cap on this one actually, which is a bit different from the others. It tells you a little bit on the back of this, but it's in Dutch and French, so I'm not actually going to be able to read that for you because I'm not too familiar with either. It just says it's brewed, this Trappist beer is brewed in the Abbey, and I think it's brewed and conditioned with tradition, our own water, some malt, hop and yeast as well. It's actually fairly similar to Swedish. I was forgetting that about Dutch and Flemish, of course, that they are. There is a good bit of similarity between that and Swedish. So yeah, as I said, this one's an 8% brewing beer. So without further ado then, I guess we can get this guy open. I'll just show you once again, this is the official Trappist symbol that you're going to see on on these Trappist beers. But without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. So yeah, nice smoky opening on this one. As I always say, you do have to be a little bit careful with the Belgian beers because they do bottle ferment, and sometimes the heads and things like that can go a little bit crazy. But it looks very, very nice. So we'll get this guy out and into the glass. That's actually quite a dark looking beer, this one. But I'm really interested to have a go at this and see how it turns out. But yeah, as you can see, this beer is poured a really dark. If I hold this up to the light, it looks really dark when it's sat down, but it's actually a very dark, sort of ruby-ish colour. It's got a little bit of chestnut colour to it, but more than anything, that is a really dark ruby colour. I'm not sure how well you can see that. Probably to you guys on the camera, it looks more like a kind of dark chestnut mahogany. I need to try and get a light behind me, actually, for filming in here. But this one, it does look very, very nice. I'm not sure if I hold it up to the natural light, maybe you can see that there, the light coming through, but that is quite far away of course. But yeah, it's a nice dark ruby, almost red wine-ish colour actually. There's a solid, I'd say, 2/3 of a finger of a frothy beigey tan head on this one. Or not beigey tan, it's probably a kind of creamy beigey colour. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall, it does look really nice. It's just a little bit redder than I thought a brewing beer would be, but the colour doesn't really matter. It's all about the taste. So let's take a little look at the aroma and see how we get on before we taste the beer. That one smells actually very, very fruity. Yeah, the aroma is actually quite mild in this, so you've got a nice sort of brown bready base to this one. You can smell a little bit of that thicker kind of doughy Belgian yeast that you expect. There's maybe a tiny little bit of there's a tiny little bit of a sort of spicy character to it, I would say. Try to think, is it a sort of, maybe it's not quite cinnamon. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it does have a certain kind of spicy character to it. And again, that's a sort of typical trait of Belgian beers. There's a little bit of woody and nutty note coming out of this beer as well, but a good little bit of brown sugar. You can smell a sort of caramel and honey note coming out of this. It's got a little bit of a biscuit aroma, and that goes quite nicely on top of the bread. There's a wee bit of earthy hop in there, maybe some grassiness too. And there is a decent bit of kind of red fruity esters. For me, this one's coming across as quite a sort of candied red fruit ester. There is a little bit of a figgy note to it, but mainly it's a nice sort of candied red fruit ester, this one. But it does smell really quite nice. So as I always say, just take a little bit of time and mull over the aroma of your beer before you actually try it, because there's a lot of joy to be had in that. It's always really cool to just do that for a little bit when it comes to whiskey, sake and craft beer and things. But this is really, really nice smell in this one. So just take a little bit of time to savour that before you actually try it. But let's get stuck into this beer then. So this one is the Achel Bruine beer, 8 degrees, from the Trappist Brewery at Achel in Belgium, really close to the Netherlands actually. Slange, Prost, Santé. Oh yeah, that's really quite nice actually. It is different. There's no way that that is exactly a Dubbel beer. It's just a little bit sharp and sweet in comparison to some of the other Dubbels that I've come across. This one is something just a little bit different. Yeah, to me, this one's coming across just in a completely different way from the Dubbels. I'm sure I did see that this beer was listed on a few places like Rate Beer and Beer Advocate and things like that as a Dubbel beer. But to me, it does taste more like a Bruine beer, Bier Bruine. It's just that it tastes to me as if it is more in that kind of brown ale category than in the Dubbel. It's just not quite bready enough, I would say, to be in the kind of Dubbel category. But of course, to me, personally, the styles don't matter all that much. It's all about how good the beer is in terms of quality. And this is certainly nice, and I do like ones that are a little bit different. I always enjoy a good Belgian blonde or a Belgian Bruin, but as I've told you before, my favourite styles when it comes to Belgian beer probably are the triple and the quadruple, but they're a bit more of a treat because they are obviously heavier in alcohol. But at 8%, this one isn't too far away from the triple. But that's really nice. So as I always say with these slightly darker beers, just take a little bit of time and sugar it around your palate and let your whole mouth adjust to it before you analyse the flavour too much. But this is a good beer. It's very different from the other ones I've reviewed in the series so far and from what my memory of a Dubbel is. But with this one, it's really good. I mean, you get this little kind of light brown bready character that just blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, you can start to feel just a little bit of that slightly thicker, doughy, bready yeast that you expect of a Belgian beer. But to me, it's not quite as heavy as some of the other ones that you're going to come across. But it's just got a nice lighter character. For me, this one leans a lot more towards the kind of caramel side of things. There's quite a bit of a toasted caramel in there. It's actually quite a dark caramel, this one. It's got that nice kind of dark, really quite toasty, roasty caramel coming out of it. Yeah, you'll feel that. You'll take the beer in, you'll feel the bread, and then right in the middle of your palate, just towards the back a little bit, you'll get that slightly darker, roasty, toasty, brown sugar caramel coming out of it. This is a really, really nice beer, and I do like how this one comes across actually. Yeah, if you get the chance to try this one, I highly recommend that you do. I really hope I can try some of their other beers. I think the heavier alcohol ones, on the basis of this one, I think the heavier ones are going to be really nice as well, and I'm sure the lighter ones are very nice, but this one, I'm certainly enjoying this. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. This is perhaps the most drinkable of the Belgian beers that I've reviewed so far actually, although in fairness, the West Vlesteren Blonde was really nice, but in terms of the darker beers, this is probably the most drinkable one that I've come across so far. But yeah, when you progress further into the aftertaste with this one, you can feel just a little bit further towards the front of your tongue, you can feel there's a little bit of a woody, slightly nutty character coming out of it. That just progresses as you move further and further into the aftertaste, but I do like that slightly darker, toasted brown sugar note that this beer has. And that the way it's kind of just a little bit lighter on the kind of bready, yeasty things that you expect of the Belgian beers, that's really nice. It's just a completely different, it's just a complete change of pace, I guess you would say, this beer. So a big thumbs up to the Trappist Brewery at Achel for this. They've done a nice job with this, and it is cool to see that they are developing their own unique styles of beer, I guess, as well. In terms of the hoppy side of this beer, in the back corners of the palate there is a wee bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward you can feel there's a little bit of herbal character, but around the front corners of the tongue it's a little bit floral, and there is a wee bit of bitterness there. Round the very front curve of the palate there's a bit of a lighter kind of a grassy note to it, and the whole beer just kind of goes together quite well. But the most prominent component of the flavour I'd say is that kind of dark toasted caramel. It almost leans a little bit towards having a bit of chocolate in the beer, but really I think it's more of a kind of quite dark, a quite long toasted brown sugar actually. Yeah, that's pretty nice. As I said, I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. In terms of the fruity side of this beer, as I always say, if you just go behind the front curve of your palate, that's where you get the little oily bubble, where the nice fruity esters come out of the beer. With this one, it's quite interesting because it starts off and you get a little bit of an almost raisiny sharpness when it comes in, but then it just mellows out and you start to get a little bit more of this kind of figgy character coming out of the beer. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of datey flavour to it as well. There is a little bit of that. Towards the front of the tongue it has almost a kind of cakey flavour because of these woody and nutty notes, and that's where some of these red fruity esters are coming out of the beer too. It reminds me a little bit of these little Haribo Star Mix sweets with the little heart-shaped ones. That's the kind of flavour this one reminds me of. But as you progress further and further into the aftertaste, it's a little bit of that woody and nutty note, some of the red fruits, and then that kind of dark toasted caramel that's just lingering there. But that's a really nice beer. So if you get the chance, definitely have a go at this. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, I would say this is mid-bodied. The carbonation on this one is a little bit smoother than the other ones. It doesn't quite have the same level of lively carbonation that the other ones I've had a look at so far had. It has a little bit of liveliness to it, but to me, it definitely comes across as being a little bit smoother. The mouthfeel on this one has a little bit of oily quality, but at the same time it is a little bit wet. The malt base has a good bit of sweetness to it, but there is that kind of darker roasted character to it, and the slightly the yeasty flavours to this one aren't quite as prominent, so it doesn't smooth out in the same way. That's probably why it leans a little bit more towards the roasty side of things. The hops have a little bit of bitterness, but overall they're quite smooth. This beer certainly isn't going to blow your head in terms of IBUs and things like that, and there is a little bit of a juicy fruity character, but for me the main part of the mouthfeel is it's a sort of wet oily beer, and then it's got a little bit of that kind of darker, slightly roasted sweetness to it. But overall it's a really nice beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So a big thumbs up to the Trappist Brewery at Achel for this one, and it is cool, as I said, to see that they're producing something that's a little bit unique in comparison to the other Trappist breweries that are there. So I certainly wouldn't hesitate to try some of their other beers. Hopefully I can get a hold of a few of them and review them for you at some point on the channel. And it has been cool it is cool to actually get to the chance to do these kind of Belgian Trappist beers for you. So it's been really cool to do this series so far, and I hope you enjoy the last 3 videos that we've got to do, and I'm glad that I finally got to try one of these Achel beers. So yeah, if you enjoy a nice kind of toasty dark caramel flavour, this one from Trappist Achel is really going to hit the spot for you. So I hope you've enjoyed my take on this beer. As always, thank you for watching. Do let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are out of the Achel range as well, and hopefully I can try a few of the others in the fairly near future. But this one was the Bruine beer, the 8 degrees one from Trappist Achel in Achel in Belgium, near the Netherlands actually, very close to Eindhoven. So if you find yourself in Eindhoven, take a little drive to the south and you will find the Trappist Brewery at Achel. But thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and do check out my social media. But this one was the Trappist Achel Bruine beer 8 degrees, and it was really pretty damn good. It's landed just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. Proust, santé.